Hello, Vivid Tribe. How are you all doing today? Today I'm chatting to two very special guests. They're fellow Cape Townians. They're both QHHT practitioners, and they have been coming forward and channeling very interesting information about the times that we are in, and some great context and advice on what we need to do right now during these extraordinary times. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Erica Williamson and Lenelda Ludolf.
Hi.
Erica, do you want to give us an intro on you first?
Yes, no problem. Okay, so yes, as Anina said, I'm a QHHT level 2 practitioner from Cape Town, South Africa. At this stage, that's very much my 5D job. I'm still also linked to my 3D job at the moment. I'm an architect specializing in healthcare infrastructure in the Western Cape. So that's, hospitals, clinics, that kind of thing. So it's very much this kind of bridging between the physical and the spiritual has kind of been a theme throughout my life. I also have a YouTube channel. It's called QHHT Cape Town. So, QHHT is quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is a technique developed by Dolores Cannon, which has to do with regression work, parallel life kind of, information channeling, but also higher self connection. So I have a QHHT channel, our YouTube channel, which actually features information from those sessions. And also, Lenelda and I are getting a lot of information about this New Earth curriculum, which we're kind of compiling into a book, which is kind of a soft disclosure about the galactic origins of humanity, but also, the galactic origins of our planet. So that's basically what I'm up to at the moment, doing these kind of two jobs, juggling two jobs at the moment. So more or less that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Erica. It's a really great nutshell. Lenelda, over to you.
So I'm Lenelda, or most people call me Lee, so for short, and I'm also a QHHT practitioner. I am also a traditional hypnotherapist, and I studied that way back in 2009. And then in 2020, I just had this feeling that I need to do something or need to go somewhere. And I did a Google search, and the first thing that came up was QHHT. When I Googled hypnosis again, because I thought I should study a bit more. And that's what led me to Erica's page. And I was just like, I'm booking a session. And we booked, this was in August 2020. I booked a session with her, and we had quite an interesting experience in that session where we kind of discovered that I am able to communicate through information from a origin level, galactic level, and since then we've been working together and connecting people through their higher selves, connect with their higher selves, helping people in that way, and also do research through these sessions. So this is what I do all day, every day. I do communication through what we call channeling. I also do light language, so I speak the audible telepathy from the galactics, and when we do these sessions, we receive the telepathy, and then I translate that through in our sessions, in a nutshell.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, personally, I became aware of QHHT probably 1.5, 2 years ago. I don't even remember how I came across it, but I would also say my path was also quite sort of divinely guided. It's like things are just coming to you when the time is right, and it's amazing how it all falls into place. And then, yeah, I started researching. I fell in love with Dolores Cannon's work, and I listened to a lot of her stuff. And then I thought, I don't know how I came, it must have been on YouTube. I came across Erica's channel by accident. I was like, wow, somebody in Cape Town is doing this particular QHHT method, which is basically Dolores Cannon's own method of hypnosis that really goes, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but going quite a bit deeper and not just into past lives, but into way back to the origins of that particular soul, whether it be different, whatever planet originally they're from, because we all seeded from different planets and different races, and we made up out of many different races. 22, I believe. So I found that fascinating, and I thought, well, why not go, exactly back to the origins of it all? Who would want to go back 1 or 2 lifetimes when they can go all the way back to, other planets? So, and then I booked a session with Eric, and I just found it really, really fascinating. And I've been listening to a lot of our content. So, Lenelda, I was very interested in, you and Eric make such a good team, and the information that you've brought forward is, in my opinion, quite groundbreaking. And I'm quite proud that, fellow Kryptonians can really contribute this level of knowledge to the global stage, because, we're all connected on that global stage right now, and we're all trying to figure out what's going on around us in the world. We all know there are big changes on the way, not just in terms of all the chaos that's going on, but we all know about this 26,000 year cycle that we're busy completing and entering into a golden age, and wondering how we can speed up this positive timeline, because I think we're all so sick of the crap that have been thrown our way these last 2.5 years. So yeah, I found the information fascinating that the two of you have brought forward. I believe that you are writing a book, and I'm very interested to hear more about that. So maybe you want to tell us more about that, how it all came about, the content and subject matter, and what the purpose and objective is.
So I'll just start explaining, then Lenelda and I will just kind of go back and forth like a tennis match. I hope that's okay. Okay, so, this is basically, it's called the New Earth Curriculum, which basically is like a soft disclosure document, an illustrated document, because of course Lenelda is a very, very talented artist as well. She creates this digital art of the galactic beings, which we always hear about. We don't necessarily always see in much detail. So what it basically talks about is the origins of humanity and the origins of our planet, and I just like to say that the information is not meant to be predictive or prescriptive. Many versions of the story exist. You can, every kind of spiritual teacher or guide is bringing forth different information. So, what we've gotten is that there's no infinite truths. There's no absolute truth. There's an infinite amount of truths based on your perspective or focal point at any given time. Which is why, history has always been so misconstrued. There would be one happening, something would happen, but there would be so many different perspectives of the same story, which are all completely different. So, the way we access this information is through Dolores Cannon's, QHHT method, which you described quite accurately earlier. She wrote 20 books using this technique. So we're very confident the information that we bring forward is kind of pure information, and also, the information we bring forth is based on our collective, or the current reality based on the collective that we work with. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so how did we get to the information? I basically asked a question. So between 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, I call it the witching hour. I basically have like all these questions coming into my mind. And I don't know if you guys also have this. I basically always say to myself, okay, the next day I'm going to ask this question in one of our sessions, maybe with Lenelda, maybe with one of our other channels that I'm working with, or in QHHT. So the question I had was, how did we get here? How did we become, kind of ruled? How are we these kinds of constantly uncomfortable slaves, in this kind of society, stuck in this system? And I basically asked that question. So I also wanted, so the next day, I think about a week later or something, I worked with Lenelda, just correct me if I'm wrong, Lenelda. And I basically asked the question, but I wanted the information from both sides of the story. So we basically were told then that we could access, because by the way, what people don't understand is sometimes you can't access information. You can kind of be blocked from information. So they said, okay, we can get the information because we won't polarize about the topic, we would stay in kind of neutrality or non-judgment about it. So what happened is Lenelda basically went to the Syrian library. Is that correct, Lenelda? And which is basically kind of the Akashic record of the universe. It's more galactic information. So a lot of the channels that we work with, some of them would be very much shamanic, some of them would be celestial, some of them would be, galactic, some of them, they kind of bring forth information. Some of them sometimes have to do with elementals. So with Lenelda specifically, the information she brings forth is very, very much galactic. So that is going to come forth. So they basically took us to this Syrian library where there was basically an overseer. It's kind of like the Akashic records. You've heard those stories, right? but this is kind of the more galactic information of the universe. So what she basically saw was kind of like an orb, like a tablet. You can explain it as a tablet, but an orb in which she could kind of take herself into and kind of get the information. Is that correct, Lenelda? Is that what you saw?
Yeah, it's almost like dropping into, I remember saying in the session, it's almost like dropping into that pensieve in Dumbledore's office. But instead you fall into a body or an experience. You're not, sometimes it's as an observer, but the thing that we have found the most is I can actually like walk in to an experience on a specific planet and then kind of view what's happening.
Yes, she is, we explained it in other interviews we've done, is that she is a walk-in in this life and in all other lives as well.
Okay.
So she can walk into any experience or anyone's kind of life, because that's like basically all she knows at this stage. But even that plot thickens, but anyway, we'll get there later. Okay, so then she, okay, so what then she saw is basically the Earth being round. It is actually round.
Thank you for answering that one, because it's been a hot topic.
So what she saw is that, okay, so the Earth is basically, of course, a sphere, but the Earth that we know it, with the continents that we know, is basically a segment cut out of the sphere. So she saw it millions of years ago that, there is what we see and what we know, but around it there are even more continents. So we only have access to that small bit of information. So that, we can see it as the 3D or the 5D aspect, which is split from each other. That was actually segregated from each other as we know it now. But back in the day, at the beginning, it was all basically one. And that's where this infinite race came in. So I think, Lenelda, maybe you could just talk about that. But before we get there, this number 12 comes up a lot. 12, 9, and 7. Us being very spiritual, we're very much into the numbers. I don't know, but if you are also, Anina, you kind of probably read into the numbers. This, before Lenelda gets to the infinite race or the original race, which you can see as the Garden of Eden, there's information about this 12 star systems, the Galactic Federation being the 12, the house of 12 star systems, the 12 zodiac signs, the 12 dimensions, the 12 DNA strands, the 12 chakras, the 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah, the 12 tribes, and then that translates into 144, right?
Yes, that
DNA. Yeah.
Yes, so that was what they kind of said. She saw that this planet, then she started talking about the 12 and these 12, donating our chakras, the 12 chakra systems to our bodies. And then also how, the different races come in and see the planet. So for instance, the Arcturians are very much linked to nature. So they started working with the nature and the plants and, the mushrooms, the networks of mushrooms, very much symbolic of their actual race themselves. And, the Ataris or the Pleiadians would come in with the watering system, all of that. So they all contributed to the birthing of the planet. And in the beginning, it was a very fruitful place in this kind of perfect existence. And I think Lenelda will talk about a little bit more about this original infinite race, the kind of golden age, and I will talk more about the kind of downfall of this infinite race.
Wonderful.
It's so hard to explain this information.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, so what we were shown is that, all these different kind of races contributed to the planet, to the actual elements on the planet as well, including a human, which is the human kind of DNA creation of all these kinds of beings. And all of them had a contribution to creating this, what we call the original race, what they called the original race. And this original race, they looked very much human like we do, but obviously there was no real like clothing that I picked up on or anything. But what I remember is it was like a very crystalline being. They had a very like shimmery skin. And the whole purpose of creating this being was to kind of come in from a galactic sense as galactics and experience what it is like to walk physically on a planet, to touch, to, you know, interact with physical things. And what they also showed us is that this being was also androgynous. It didn't have any sex. It wasn't a being that had age or anything like that. There was not, no, like I remember Erica saying things, and then I would say, there's no concept of what you're saying. I don't understand what you're saying, because I obviously went into that experience of just being on Earth and experiencing what it's like to walk. We could fly as well. We could, you know, gravity is something that was created later. We could do whatever we want. So if you can imagine any kind of dream where you can move around in the way that you want to move around, you can do that. If you want to breathe underwater, you can do that. If you want to go into water, if you want to become with the water, you can do that. So this infinite race was connected to absolutely everything, because it was connected to all the contributions of the different galactics that contributed towards this planet. So they were androgynous, and I will go a little bit into what happened. It's kind of like, think about it like this, that what they said was, if you experience being so perfect in a physical sense, in the utmost perfect positive polarity, at some point it's going to be like, but I want to experience something else. So that was kind of like what happened to the consciousness of those beings. They were completely conscious, like what we call enlightenment, obviously, but it's a balance that you have when you come into a polarity experience. The one can't exist without the other. So obviously those memories, understandings came into these beings, and they wanted to experience the opposite polarity. And this is where, Erica, you can take over from here if you want.
No, I think that's super interesting. And I just want to say something. So I've also really struggled with this light and dark and evil versus good. And I think in a couple of the channeled sessions that you did with various people, Erica, it was also like, there's no such thing as good and bad. And I think a lot of people really struggle with that. But, you know, you don't understand what light is unless you can contrast it with the dark, and that I think is really fascinating, and is something that people are really struggling with. So interesting that you're saying, when everything is perfect and you only see light around you, you know, it's like you can't see the light. Light needs darkness, otherwise it's not light. The same with, you know, the other way around. So that's quite fascinating.
You know, if you go beyond polarity, then, you know, then it's understandable where the neutrality is, and everything is, you know, integrated into that oneness that we always talk about. But in the polarity sense, where we come and we experience, you know, the one can't exist without the other, and the one is also not better than the other. You know, it's all valid. It's all valid experience, and obviously some sort of balance was necessary in that experience, and this is what, you know, then started moving into balancing that towards the other polarity. So Erica, do you want to continue on that?
Yes, I'd just like to say, but I'll get to the chakra donations later, but you know, like I said, we are amalgamation of these 12 races, including the reptilians and the draconians. So the dark, the light, the dark is within us as well. There is an aspect of us which does actually, you know, could have power over, control over, domination over someone else. You know, but for us to deny, reject, and disown this aspect of ourselves, we're actually pushing ourselves away from ourselves. So I think this over focus on the light and love, you know, in rejection of the dark, which is us, the light and the dark, the polarity, I think is actually doing us a big disservice. So which is why
it's about integrating the two, right? That's the key.
Yeah, but it's not balance, it's integration, which is oneness, unity, which happens in the heart, which is why they always bring us back to the heart. Anyway, we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, so Lenelda, you didn't talk about didn't they talk about this infinite, you know, ideal kind of Garden of Eden race then exists, and What happens then is there's a meteor that kind of hits the planet. So this could be a metaphoric or symbolic meteor, and they basically said it was physical and metaphoric or symbolic at the same time, just to complicate things even more.
It shows the turn, you know, like wanting to go. That's what we got from it. Like she said, like there was very many meteors. I know in the Atlantean time, I saw 3 specifically on the visuals we saw, but before that too, there's also this kind of like meteor, and it's in a mental capacity as well as physical, that caused some sort of kind of like devastation. But because it was possible for that to come in, because the balance was being brought back to the center, so then you can have what we say negative and also positive. And all I remember, I just want to add this before you continue, Erica, is I remember when that happened, the galactic beings who created this kind of human, it was kind of like a little bit of a sadness. If I like, I remember feeling a little bit of a, do we interfere? No, or do we just leave it to continue to do what it's doing, you know? And it was kind of like this decision was made by the whole lot to have it play out, because it's valid. It's valid to have an experience like that.
Yes, and it was within their desire. They desired the opposite experience or perspective. I think.
Yeah, it's all within the rule of non-interference, right? And if we are given things on a silver plate, or we told things, then you don't learn. So, you know, we had to unfortunately go through that experience, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So then this kind of devastation, or this kind of virus, they kind of describe it as a virus, is now slowly spreading across this planet, you know, metaphorically, symbolically, physically, actually, as well. So with destruction comes these kind of lower vibrational beings, we know as the Draconians, reptilians, you know, coming in, because they're attracted to destruction, devastation, because of the power of control aspect. But also, you know, their own planets are, you know, the resources are completely being built to infinity. They need resources on their planet, because certain of their planets, you know, atmospheres, whatever, is kind of in deterioration mode. So they see the Earth as this kind of like perfect mine to mine gold and boron and copper, you know, for their technologies. Because of course we understand that they're very much externally focused, external technologies, not as us, you know, supposed to be internally focused, internal technologies. So they come in to this experience. What they find here is, okay, so a lot of these infinite beings had escaped to escape this destruction. A lot of them go into the inner Earth, right, Lenelda, and kind of this is where Lemuria and the rise. Right?
Yeah, there was a lot of this infinite race that went into inner Earth, and there were also a few that broke away out of the Earth, and then there were some remaining on the surface as well. So it's kind of like they scattered into different directions. But we'll talk about Lemuria later. That came from the inner Earth eventually. But you can go on first.
Okay, so then these infinite race beings, the one who had stayed behind on the planet, they slowly started forgetting who they were, and sort of forgetting that they have this light force, this light, you know, what did they call it, light source technology, that they can actually create anything. But they slowly starting to forget who they are. At the same, so they become this kind of like cave. They speak of like a caveman kind of ape-like being, you know, deteriorating into this kind of what do you call it, primitive almost being.
This is also years.
Yeah. And then who comes in then, of course, the Anu, they call them the Anu. We understand them to be the Anunnaki, and the reptilians come in. They start creating these hybrid beings that they can use, of course, to do the mining and to do, you know, building up of things. And I actually asked the question, but if these beings are so highly advanced and technological, why do they need the human or this kind of hybrid they're creating to do all of this work? And what they basically said is that they actually found pleasure out of seeing the humans suffer. But they told us not to go into judgment out of that, because this is all that they know. We have to understand those beings are also being controlled by other beings, you know, being the archons or whatever we call them, whatever it is. They're being controlled. All they know is control, and they think control is good. So in that perspective, that is also a valid experience they are allowed to have on this planet. But of course, they also help the human being evolve. Because we went into the dark age, now we're kind of moving more into the golden age. So they helped the humans to a certain extent, but was also enslaving these kind of humanoid hybrids they were creating. But these humanoid hybrids only had one chakra donated to them. So of course they weren't procreating themselves. They were being birthed or born, by these overlords or whatever you might call them. They only had one chakra, which we understand to be the kind of survival, carnal aspect of ourselves. And these human beings didn't live very long. They weren't very good slaves. Let's put it that way. They were running away. They were kind of killing among each other. They had no will to. There was no desire to live for them because they were kind of just being abused and whatnot. So then what happened was that the Surians, so of course the reptilians donated the root chakra, and then the Draconians from, Surya, the Surian constellation donated the second chakra, which is the sacral chakra. And now suddenly these single chakra humans can actually birth. They can actually procreate themselves. They are not being procreated in the lab basically by these controllers. So now they actually have a will to live. And also they start realizing how powerful they actually are, because now I can create a human being. So now that means I'm God, basically. They're slowly starting to remember who they are. So then the third chakra, this is happening in thousands of years.
Thousands of years, yeah.
Timelines, everything is simultaneous time. So we can almost not even ask about timelines. It's just literally, it is occurring at this exact time, and we're basically extracting and plucking information as we're going along because it's happening at the exact time that we're talking right now. So then after that, the solar plexus is donated, of course, by the Lyrens. Very, very direct there, right? The Lyrens, then the heart is donated by all creator beings as the years are progressing. The throat chakra, I think, was the Pleiadians, the Avians, right? Lenelda, do you want to step in? The third eye chakra is donated by the Arcturians. Like we said earlier, the Arcturians basically are the ones who brought in the nature and the animals. So when we do something like an ayahuasca trip, then our third eye is opened up, that kind of thing. So they had very much connection to the third eye. And in the crown, the blue, the what is it? The spheres, right? Blue spheres. Is that correct?
They showed the spheres and these sphere beings and orbs is kind of very energy, wholeness to a sense. The crown chakra. They showed a lot of orbs, orb beings. So everyone contributed, obviously, but specifically for the crown, that's to awaken our soul stars so that we can remember all of our lives, to a sense. Do you want? Where did she go?
We lost our host.
Probably the cat. My cats are also crazy today for some reason. They haven't slept at all.
Sorry about that. The cat is he wants to go in and out, and he wants to...
Mine's running around here like crazy.
Must be the full moon or something. I don't know.
But cats, when the doors close, they have to go through it. They have to go through it.
Yeah. Not supposed to be closed.
Oh dear. Anyway, I've put him out now. That's all fascinating information. I think there's been so many different versions of this story being told, and I think we've learned that there's a lot of versions that are not really that truthful. You look at Zachariah Sitchin's book, which apparently there's a lot of anomalies and gaps in there. Not, it's again one perspective, not necessarily the truth of what happened with the Anunnaki, and so I think it's really fascinating. And Lenelda, so where did you bring this information from? Do you know if it was from, you said it was from the Syrians, right?
Yes, so we went through the Galactic Federation, and they took us to the Syrian library, and we met there one of those ancient beings. They look quite interesting. They've got these like rounded eyes. They do have lids. It's not like the the black eyes that we know. Rounded eyes, and also like a quite a elongated but
skull.
more flat to a sense skull, and they're like this grayish brownish color, the skin tone. And this one was wearing some sort of suit robe. I know they call them the ancient Syrians or something like that, because there are so many ancient beings. You get the golden light beings, you get the ancient Pleiadians as well. But one of the images that came through yesterday that I also found quite interesting, and I just literally an hour ago integrated what it actually meant, was with regards to the Anunnaki. That happened also in that period of time where it was in the root sacral chakra period, where they wanted to create this kind of like supreme human enlaced with their kind of blood lineage into these humans who they called their slaves, but they wanted to kind of create them to be really elite to a sense, so that they could incarnate into them as well. And these beings with this lineage or bloodline from the reptilians, and also other galactic beings, malevolent and benevolent. Obviously, we have everything. Started, coming into when we get to the Lemurian part as well. They wanted to kind of influence them in a way, and that's where they started kind of interbreeding with the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, and then many of the Atlanteans carried this Anunnaki DNA or blood lineage as well. So do you want to continue with Inner Earth coming up into Lemuria?
I think Erica? You did that, but I just want to explain why I explained that thing about the chakra systems and why it's so important. Is because they were also talking about the heart opening now with the age of Aquarius. The heart is opening. And at the bottom, 3 chakras are, kind of activated, but the heart needs to activate. They're not that they're not activated. They're spinning, but they're not 100% online. So what they're saying is the heart needs to open now with the age of Aquarius in order to activate the bottom 3 and the top 3 chakras integration once again in the 0 point, which is in the heart, which we'll explain a little bit later how to connect with the heart. So that's why that is so important to understand this donation system of this. Yeah. That's that we are the house of God, basically the house of 12 star systems. This kind of almost peace treaty between the light and dark aspects of existence. Anyway, we'll get into that kind of more at the opening of the heart section. Lenelda, maybe you can just explain about the Lemurian part.
Yeah. I also just want to add, so we've been in solar plexus spin energy for thousands of years, and now we are actually moving out of the solar plexus into the heart energy. So we're traveling up to a sense in our chakras. As if we want to put this all into a linear, first it was the root, then it was the sacral, and we've been in the solar plexus up until what they've said around 2019, and moving into the heart now. They also explain something about the Gregorian calendar not being right, or there's a time difference in that. Yeah, but they showed something about we all think 2012 everything shifted, but it actually happened in 2019.
Exactly. That's why the Mayan calendar said there would be like a cataclysm in 2012, and people are like, oh, well, that was, that never happened. But it's because there's a difference between the Gregorian calendar and the Mayan calendar. So that's actually this 2019-20 kind of scenario.
Yeah, it's a 5-year difference. So 2012 was actually 2019.
Yeah, and actually, you know, not being a cataclysm as such, but rather like a kind of a
Awakening.
rebirth, yeah, kind of awakening of the planet,
Reset.
the
Yeah.
Great Reset or the Great Awakening, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, yeah. So some of the images that they showed us was inner Earth. So this original race, many of them went into the inner Earth to kind of preserve their consciousness. They didn't want to get influenced. They didn't necessarily want to go in the opposite polarity. So there were these breakaway groups. Some went into the inner Earth, and then the others went, you know, off planet. And they did refer to them as this ancient builder race. And then also you have the ones who remained on the surface, who kind of reverted completely back into the other polarity. These are the ones who became the slaves eventually, and then who were redesigned. And then that was, you know, the blood lineage that I was just talking about. But it's also thousands and thousands, it's like hundreds and thousands of years. But what they showed us, there was these beings that went, this original race beings went into the inner Earth. They kept their androgyny as well. And eventually, when the Earth started to kind of form into a kind of more livable space, where there were these what we say negative kind of influences on the Earth, but they wanted to rise out of the Earth and kind of interact and join with the beings on the surface. So this is where Lemuria came from, actually, from the inner Earth, they explained to us. And the Lemurians were also androgynous. They didn't have any sexes.
Oh wow.
It was a very, very it's something that we can pretty much call like heaven on earth experience in this kind of like polarity experience. They had the, you know, the most amazing technologies, crystal technologies. I think I explained like it was this emerald, it looked like the Emerald City. That was the closest thing I could refer. But it was crystalline to a sense, and these beings could create from light thought. They would just think it and they would manifest it. They had these large foreheads as well that lit up. The eyes also lit up when they actually, you know, manifested things. And then there was this so this is what we call Lemuria, and what we refer to as the Pacific Ocean. But there was another area where they also came out of inner Earth. That is actually Mu. So Mu and Lemuria are actually two different areas, or two different, say, states of Lemuria. So Mu was actually located in the Indian Ocean, which is completely like, you know, if we put this all together, that the continents are very different then. But obviously, if you want to put it into context in our understanding right now, it was two different islands that they showed. And so, but let's get back to Lemuria. Mu is a whole different story. There's a whole different story there. But in Lemuria, so these beings were androgynous, and they really wanted to follow their ways of being. But many of their children didn't really want to always, you know, follow the old teachings.
And this is where they were kind of tempted by the other.
Yes, because they started interacting with these other humans on the surface that had this Anunnaki DNA lineage or bloodline lineage within them. And they wanted to start, you know, interacting as well. And they influenced each other. And this is where Atlantis eventually came from. Atlantis came after Lemuria. So it was kind of like the Lemurians' children that became the Atlanteans eventually, with influences of these other beings on the surface. So that is a in a nutshell about Lemuria and Atlantis. Atlantis, obviously, there's a lot happening there as well. I remember there were 3 meteors that they showed that hit in different times. And eventually the final one caused that tidal wave to completely remove Atlantis, because they became so technologically advanced that they would have destroyed themselves or the earth to a sense. This is why there was eventually interference with that.
I've heard somewhere as well, I would like to have your take on this, that Lemuria had much more of a sort of divine feminine, the divine feminine was more dominant, and Atlantis, the divine masculine, or it was almost too feminine in Lemuria and too masculine in Atlantis. What is your view on that?
Yeah, so with that, so remember I said the Lemurians were androgynous. So it's kind of like their children, they were androgynous too. That is, they caused the split in their being, and this is where the divine masculine and feminine came in, or the male and female aspect came into the Atlanteans, because it's kind of like these external influences told them, but look, you can't do, you know, you don't have what we have, you're just like this one tone to a sense. And so many of the Lemurians were then like, but I want to experience this kind of stuff too. And they were, you know, they could create anything they like. So they actually started manifesting and splitting their being. And obviously, I think they, you know, the way how powerful they were, they could create these kind of like bodies, which we call masculine and feminine right now. Yeah, so it's a lot. It's confusing still. We're still putting it all into place, but this is about it in a nutshell. There's a lot more information.
So there was a little bit of an overlap between Lemuria and Atlantis, right? They did kind of exist at the same time as well. Yeah. Lemuria came first, and then Atlantis came, and then Lemuria was destroyed first, right?
So the Lemurians, that came in all later, like when Atlantis was kind of removed from the surface. That only, you know, the ancient Lemurians wanted to still help the Atlanteans and say them, listen, remember who you are, remember the teachings, remember the you know, how we live. And they were just like, nah, you know, we want to do this. And they were just focused on, you know, focusing externally, obviously. And that is where that divine feminine that you talk about is more Lemurian, is because they were more in the creator being category, the Lemurians, than what the Atlanteans were. They were polarized in their creatorship. So this is where that comes from, that they were more feminine to a sense. Yeah.
Very fascinating. Erica, I don't know if you want to continue, but obviously you guys have been talking about the new Atlantises as well. So I don't know if you want to touch on that now or.
Yes. Yeah, so the information that Lenelda and I were talking about, this is hours and hours of literally of, session, basically trying to sum this up and condense this. So yeah, just bear with us on that. So the other information I've been getting, which I thought was very, very interesting, at the end of last year, I think you did watch the video, Anina, right? So I was called to go to, you know how we are called to go certain places. There's just certain places on this planet that we have to visit, and we have to go, and we have to trust our intuitions and our first thoughts, and we go. So I was called to go to Agulhas, which is the southernmost tip of Africa. I'm not sure if you've been there. You've been there, right? I don't know if you've recently been there, but there's like a whole different vibe going on. Like some like older people are moving out. There's a whole new people coming in. It's like, it's a new world. I'm telling you, it's a different world.
Wow, I haven't been there for years.
Yeah, you should maybe check it out. So I went there, and the night before my session, so I work with Natasha, which is also, she's also in a lot of my videos. I started working with her again then, actually, because so like I said, I was called, and the night before I did the session, I had this freaking out of body experience. Like, it was just out of control. I went into like an automatic, spontaneous meditation, basically. And in this meditation, I basically saw like the only way I could relate this to was the 4 compass points, north, east, south, west, you know, that are kind of coming up together, creating this pyramid, and then this like beam of light coming inside. And I was like in the middle with this like beam of light coming out of my heart type of thing. So, and it was just so hot. It was like burning up. I was getting like a hot flush. It was just like, I couldn't sleep with like hours, and I was like, what the hell, what is wrong with, what is going on in this place? Something is wrong, not wrong, but I mean, something is different here. And then I did session with Natasha, and you know, she kind of channels the elementals. That basically her true self or her higher self would split into 4 different aspects. So a specific one would come in to answer specific questions, you know, earth, air, fire, water, whatever. So they basically were explaining that there's this new Atlantis concept, that these new Atlantises, or these places, higher vibrational places, are being created all over the world. Ours being in South Africa, in Agulhas, South Africa. So, you know, beings of light, created by beings of light, these pyramids all over the world, the kind of grids that connect them all. So we go to kind of activate these pyramids, portals. This is why the light workers are kind of moving around to kind of spread this light, open things. Even Lion's Head is also a portal which was also activated.
Yes, I listened to that, the fact that that was connected to Agulhas, and how that's actually connecting to the pyramids, if I remember correctly.
Yes, goes up. So what they were also saying is that South Africa is the root chakra of the planet. You know, there are other ones, but this one is now becoming active. So us, the light workers, our activity here is opening up that root chakra, which now will go up to the other chakras, kind of creating this Kundalini awakening throughout the whole universe. Throughout the whole planet, because the planet also has chakra systems, but it's all starting with us, which is just such a cool thing, because we always, you know, get told in South Africa that we're some kind of inferior, you know, kind of, I don't know, country, and you know, things are just going wrong here and whatever. It seems like something is going right here. So that was just like,
yeah, that's amazing. It's almost like that healing of the root chakra, which you can't go any further unless that gets healed, right? That root chakra. And that's fascinating. And personally, I've just realized that how I've been drawn to the mountain, I mean, specifically Table Mountain and Lion's Head, you could say, over the last couple of years. I mean, I literally moved from Vredehuk to Oranjezicht, and then finally I wanted something a lot more in nature. So I'm now at the back of Table Mountain on the Houtbay side, but it's basically just over the hill from Vredehuk. Now I've just been drawn to this place, and I don't know how or why, but I kind of just have to be here. So that's amazing as well to have heard that.
Cool. Yeah, they call it the beacons. The beacons have been lit. The call has been sent out. You know, move to these places, and they say that intuitively we will know in whichever country we live to which pyramid we need to gravitate towards, because you know, when the great, I don't know, the reset or whatever they call it is going to happen, that we are in communion with each other, with like-minded individuals. You know? So we need to look out for these places.
Yeah, one of your other channels as well put this very nicely. I think it's one of your male channels. Like we're creating this web of light around the globe or the planet. So it's like these pyramids are kind of the focal points, and then we're connecting this web. So it's like a crochet blanket that's wrapping the planet of light. And if there's enough of us that can connect all these threads, basically we can tip the scale onto this new 5D reality that we want to manifest.
Critical mass, yeah. But I mean, that's where we get to the kind of inner technology, you know. So, you know, a lot of the information coming through, you know, I try to not focus too much on whatever the other spiritual teachings is, because I want to remain uninfluenced in these kinds of sessions and completely open-minded, and almost like this is like the first time I've heard about it. So, you know, they always tell us that we should not polarize. We need to go within, go into neutrality, which can only be found in the heart, and to not focus externally on these stories. But because the only way we're going to like save this, there's not going to be a Messiah that's going to come and save us. We are the Messiahs. The change starts with us. So, you know, this integration of light and dark needs to happen within us, because the war is not out there. The war is within us, between our higher self and our egos. Let's be honest. Our egos being like that dark, dense part of us, and our higher selves being the spiritual part of us, you know. So they always talk about that integration point of the ego and the higher self. So the ego being the lower, you know, chakras, and the higher self being the upper 3 chakras. can only happen when you're in the neutrality of the heart, and the inner child resides within the heart. So they always tell us, go back to being like a child. If you think about a child, what a child wants to do, a child wants to be safe, number one, but a child wants to play. Okay. So if you watch a child, that child's not worried about tomorrow or yesterday. The child is in the moment with the sandcastle on the ocean.
But it's also that purity, and the child really has that neutrality. It doesn't it's not programmed in any way. It's just experiencing life, and curious about all aspects of light, and totally neutral. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Lenelda, do you have anything to say about that part? Because honestly, it gets drilled in our heads every single session I do with every single person who hires always coming back to the heart.
Yeah. It's always about coming back to the neutral point, because this is where we are right now. All of these experiences are not really linear to a sense. It's all happening simultaneously. And us getting this kind of information and many others getting this kind of information, we're just looking into our quantum fields, viewing different angles of the same story. This is why they appear to maybe be different in some senses, but it's actually the same story. It's a story between separation. It's a story of separation. It's a story of good and bad, or good and evil, and yes and no, and up and down. But it comes back to where we are now. We are now in the center point of our evolutionary experience as humans. And this means, we need to see both aspects as valid. I mean, what they call the negative, I don't really call it the negative anymore. I more call it just like the canvas that we're actually creating from, because we have created this now, and what can we create on this canvas that we have in front of us? And you can see it as a black canvas if you want to, but you can add any color to black if you play around with your art. So it's actually quite beautiful, because the darkness is not really dark. It's just, another frequency of light.
This is so... Sorry.
No, go for it.
I think this is so fascinating right now. And, you see so much polarity at the moment, and people are just like, that one is bad, and this one is good. And like, just pointing fingers, basically. And I've been also quite involved for a number of months now in this whole kind of truther community, and getting to know a lot of hidden truths that have been withheld from us for a long time. But also seeing that the anger and some of the stuff is really upsetting. I mean, like, the children and the trafficking, and I've seen some really horrific stuff that, so you want to kind of just even more sort of hate the dark side and point fingers, and it's this competition, and the light has to win over the dark. And it's been and I see a lot of people fall into this trap, unfortunately, and it will just continue the separation and the division and the fight, so to speak. And we've got to somehow realize that we all originated from this creator source, right? The original source creator. And we cannot hate another, because that will just create more separation. The only way out of this and through this is to integrate the two, as difficult as it sounds for many of us who have seen a lot of that terrible darkness. We've got to just somehow understand that those are experiences. We're not trying to diminish what happened to a lot of these people. It is really, really bad. But when you're able to see kind of the bigger picture of the universe as a whole, and the different dimensions and timelines that are actually happening simultaneously, you got to realize that if you keep on fighting, it's never going to get to where you want it to get, because this is not a war, it's not a competition.
Yeah, and it's, as from our conscious perspective, when we see these bad things and good things as well, the best thing we can do for ourselves right now is to focus on what you love. Because if you focus on what you love, that, creates the experience of, I mean, have you ever found it if you watch someone do something they're extremely passionate about, how it draws you in, their light draws you in. So if you just do what you love and focus on what you love to do, that's going to shine your light so bright where the others are going to see that too. And then they're going to shine their lights as well. They're going to be inspired by you shining your light. And this is how we're going to, allow this integration to occur, because whether I like to sing and whether this person likes to cook or that person likes to, do something that I might think is bad, we need to allow everyone to be who they are. And when we do that, this is where we create that actual integration. This is where we create the acceptance of valid experiences. It's not necessarily a negative or a positive, but it's all valid experiences.
Yeah, it's that ripple effect, and it's also we can, I guess, what's very difficult for people to understand, that they can manifest anything that they want to manifest, and energy doesn't judge. Energy is not polarized. Energy is just energy. Whatever you focus on, that energy will take that form. So even if you are upset about all the bad things happening in the world, if you just focus on that, it's just going to multiply, right? Even if you're trying to make it right, you have to focus on the positive, not what you want to manifest. If you want to manifest beauty and peace and harmony, you've got to focus on that rather than the chaos and the division and the war, so to speak.
Yeah, I think also people, I think need to take a little bit more responsibility. Now that I'm more part of this, the collective, which is the responsibility collective, which means that everything in my intimate environment is a reflection of my internal state. As above, so below, as within, so without, not as without, so within. So I think we're way too externally focused on this kind of story, this external war, instead of integrating this internal war within us. So, which is why I wear the seal of alchemy around my neck. This is not just like a pretty thing to have. It's a constant reminder. From the void, thoughts together with intentions and universal energy create reality, as within and without. So it's a constant reminder of that. So I think, people need to realize that everything into me, I see intimate relationships, my car, my house, my husband, my friend, my mom is a reflection of my internal state. So once again, let's drive it back home and let's resolve this internal war. Like for instance, about a month ago, I was a match to being stabbed actually in my arm in Woodstock, close to my house. And so of course, I can go into victim mentality and say we're living in a country which is super dangerous. Oh my word, let's go into that kind of story, which I could very easily have done. But now, of course, me being the person I am in this kind of collective, I'm like, okay, but there's a plethora. I have to find the lesson. What is the lesson here? And there's like a plethora of lessons. And I'm like, I can't understand this. And then Lenelda and I was chatting about it. And she was like, okay, so what is the lesson here? And she said something about, are you attacking yourself? And I was like, what? Oh my word. I was just like, this is it. I'm constantly attacking myself, which is like, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not successful enough, all the time, like literally all the time. So of course I'm going to match someone attacking me. But you see how if I take responsibility for it, I can change it. If I go and blame everyone else, I can never change it because I'm still in victim and I'm still in polarity. That is not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to go into neutrality. Now I can be in neutrality and look at myself in the mirror, do the affirmations, go for the walks, go into nature. We know what we need to do. We just need to do it, instead of talking about doing it. So for me, that is the most important lesson that people could learn.
Absolutely. I think for me, two things. The victim mentality is a huge problem. And, our religions have specifically been designed in such a way that we don't take responsibility and therefore we don't take action. So we're just saying, oh, well, we'll beg for forgiveness and hope somebody will come and save us. The information has been completely twisted. So we're basically sitting back and waiting for somebody to come and save us. That's completely wrong. We've got to take responsibility and we've got to take action. We've got to manifest what it is that we want to see in the world around us. So that's huge. And actually, this whole thing in religion about the second coming of the Christ, it's coming to save us, that's actually been twisted all around as well. It's actually us ascending into this crystalline form, saving ourselves, and it's quite sad how that's been twisted. yeah, the other thing I don't remember what I wanted to say now. Oh, the old programming. It is very difficult, very, very difficult for us to snap out of that old programming because it's so deep and it's so hidden that, you know, I constantly find myself become very self-aware, but every now and again you'll slip into like an old program. And this whole thing that you're saying, you know, not good enough, or you know, that's just an old program. It's either something that's been passed through generations to you, or it's you having experienced something very sort of painful in childhood that kind of stuck and created a program in your mind for you're not good enough, you've got to try harder, and you've got to just, you know, do a little bit more to be who you need to be. And that's something that a lot of people are struggling with, especially women. I think as women, we've just been hammered with this thing that we're never good enough, and we've got to just work harder, try harder, do more, be more successful, and be more perfect, and then we'll be accepted. So that's a big sort of aspect of ourselves that we need to heal, especially as women, but I think as humans in general, that I've also found.
Yeah, they tell us, you know, you will fail. You will fail the first 1,000 times. Like, don't expect it to be an overnight thing, but you catch yourself in the moment every single time. And you know how these, you know, something that came from religion, which I think is quite helpful, which is, do you know, like a tasbih or like a mala beads or like a rosary? You know, those beads that they sit with, for instance, tasbih with them raised. So when I went to Iran, I went to the Middle East, you know, I got a tasbih, which are these beads that you just sit and you kind of do affirmations, or like you do what you call mantras. So I literally have a tasbih and I do them, and I go for my walks and I have this tasbih and I just do this mantra like over and over. I am safe, I am worthy, I am deserving, I am free, over and over and over. And this just becomes drilled in the new program. So we have this like technique to do this, but like we can catch ourselves in every single moment and look at ourselves in the mirror and do the affirmations and, you know, start the change. Absolutely.
It starts with being self-aware, you know, having a clear mind and a clear vessel, then you start being self-aware. I had this thing, you know, this fear thing. It was like every night, like, I don't know, between 2 and 4 years ago. I mean, I was running a company, I had 15 staff, I had huge responsibilities. It was very stressful. So, you know, between 2 and 4, I would catch myself going to the bathroom. And as I sort of enter that or go over that threshold from the bedroom to the bathroom, this fear gripped me. And it was just this program. I don't know if it was an archon or what it was, but I just, at some point, I was like, okay, this is enough. Like, I need to sleep and I need to get rid of this. And I just started pushing that out and basically just saying, sorry, not having this. And I started just manifesting, doing positive affirmations. And just that, it sounds very basic, but it just really helped me. I managed to banish all fear from my life. I mean, occasionally there's like little pop-ups, but I think fear is the biggest thing. That is, obviously it's been designed in such a way to keep us in fear. The powers that be, the you know, the dark forces that's sort of been gripping this planet keep us in fear, and that takes our power away, keep us in that first chakra. And that's why we have to heal that first chakra where the fear, the fight and flight is sitting.
Yeah. It's something that I do quite often when I have that fear, you know, for whatever reason come over me. I just stop and I'm like, thanks for being here. But, you know, we talked about this one. We talked about this one, and we've decided to try some new stuff. So, you know, let's try that instead. It just disappears because I usually promote a bit of laughter in it as well, because it raises the frequency of whatever that fear is at the same time. And something that I absolutely love that Erica says a lot is, you know, when she was talking about her tasbih, she always says to me, I'm safe because I create my own safety. And I just find that line so beautiful, because you decide. There's nothing external to you. There's no demon sitting there. Yes, we have the power to create that visually, but, you know, you can still have a chat to them.
We create those demons and those archonic forces. We attract them, right? We give them life.
Because we have a dense energy within our bodies. You know, even like the Dolores Cannon didn't not write about attachments or these kind of external demons, quote unquote, whatever. The only reason they're in your existence is because they're a vibrational match to you for some reason. So you have a dense pocket within your body, which you need to integrate and heal within the light. So you know, even if you were to now somehow extract this entity, you don't heal what is causing the root problem in the first place. It's just something else is just going to come and take its place. So once again, we need to heal ourselves internally. And, you know, you were talking about the forefathers, this kind of like, you know, this cycle of abuse, like, and I'm looking at these portraits of my forefathers in the background. You can see them over here from Scotland and like Germany and whatever. Anyways, like the change starts with us. Like these people, you know, these women specifically were living in these like codependent, narcissistic, whatever relationships. But like it stops with us, because with my relationships, my life right now, I've put my foot down and said, no, I choose myself. You know, integration point, 0 point. You know, loving the self. No, the fearfulness, you know, also needs to be integrated. So like the change starts with us.
We can do that in generational healing now ourselves, and I think that's the power of this, where we are right now, with, you know, us being in this photon belt, a lot of light coming in. We really have that opportunity to heal those old intergenerational wounds, and to what did I want to say now, and snap out of that karmic cycle, you know, because we can. We move into this 5D earth, we're going to exit this whole karmic cycle. That's got to stop as well. It's not serving us anymore. You know, we can decide enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just another quick question. I'm just suddenly thinking of it. The Lyren Wars, I from what I've heard also, they've a very much kind of a love and light kind of society, and that also didn't serve them, because they end up being attacked because they didn't know what darkness were. What is either of your view on that? Do you feel that is accurate, that information?
I have seen some visuals on that in ancient Egypt, on two brothers, but we haven't really delved into actually receiving that, because we haven't reached Egypt yet.
No, we're still at the beginning stages.
We're still exploring like Lemuria at the moment, which is way before Egypt. But I remember, you know, as I connected the Lyrens a lot, because I do the light language sessions for people, and I meet a lot of Lyren origin starseeds. So then I see these kinds of visuals. And what I have seen in the most recent one is they showed Egypt, and there were two brothers, but this person wasn't part of their story. He just externally like told, like viewed the story. That's like, I saw his experience there as a human. There was these two brothers, and there was apparently like a feud between them, and eventually, you know, that got taken off planet into the Lyren area, and I don't know if it was resolved there, but I'm sure we're going to find out more on this.
Yeah, we can ask about that. Actually, I would say focus of the next session, maybe.
So that's not related to the Sumerian story and Enki and Enlil and the fight between the two of them. I mean, they were half brothers, and then that in the Egyptian version of that story is Osiris.
The Sumerians are way before the Egyptians.
Yeah,
because we did speak about the Sumerians. That was part of the race that was on the external sense, and they were influenced also by the Anunnaki, or they were part of the Anunnaki. So this is before Atlantis, and then before Egypt, the Sumerians. It's way back.
Yeah, so we heard that the information we got is that they were the Sumerians. It's not before the Sumerians on Earth. The Sumerians were a galactic race as well, part of the Federation.
Yeah.
Is that what you are talking? See, the thing is, we don't do any external research, so we don't know what you're talking about unless we
don't know about the
stories. Yeah, we don't know the other stories. This is the story we receive based on the collective that we work off based on the current timeline.
No, I think it's.
I also wonder how the other people are getting there, because, like I said,
yeah, look, I mean, I've listened to so many different sources of information. I've literally gone so deep down the rabbit hole over the last like 2.5 years. And it's amazing how you start connecting the dots and you find information that's from this source or this source, and you know the two sources are very, they're not going to like compare notes, and then you just listen to like 10 different sources and you start connecting the dots, and you see what is really the truth. Because I try and keep a very open mind. I don't just believe any story. I just keep an open mind. I let it absorb the knowledge, and then I will listen to another source and another one, and eventually I will like, okay, these are the common thread that I can kind of put together. But I think for you guys that channeling the information, it's best to stay neutral. Otherwise, you could be influenced by information that you've read and heard elsewhere.
Because if you have a preconceived notion about how things are supposed to flow, that session is going to start flowing in that way, which I think is quite dangerous, actually.
Yeah. But I like what Lenelda said about, when she started channeling the information, it went through the Galactic Federation, meaning, because I think, what I've also heard is a lot of interference now, like AI sources that come in and sort of hijack. So you think you're speaking to a benevolent Pleiadian person, but no, it could be just like AI pretending to be, this very powerful galactic AI. I'm not talking about AI on Earth. There is this, a lot of people speak about this AI god that's interfered with many galaxies and many universes and destroyed many planets. So there's been, I think lately, quite a lot of interference because the darker forces do want to keep this idea of separation alive at great cost, because they believe that is what, will keep them above everyone else. It's this power game going on. There's a lot of infiltration of information.
Yeah. See, before Erica and I do a session, we kind of both set the intention that we are only allowing pure communication or higher dimensional beings of love to come through. And one thing that they have said in one of our sessions, not maybe one of the research sessions, maybe another session, they said usually when the information is polarized, then you should start wondering who's communicating with you. Because if it's neutral, then it will be of higher dimensional origin.
Very good point. Yeah. Very good point.
But also, we, in QHHT, we make contact with the collective higher self, the higher self, okay? And also, we go specifically, if we want this kind of galactic information, we go to the Syrian library, which we know is that central communication point. So we try, like I said, we trust that technique and that way of accessing information. And also deep down, when you listen to these, this is the thing, when I listen to these sessions, or I am in these sessions, like deep down, there's like a remembrance that comes through. Like I can experience stuff quite easily. Well, it's getting easier because I have an internal knowing of it, because I was there in all these times. But it like activates your own internal remembrance, and you know deep down this is true. Like you cannot like dispute it. But sometimes I'm listening to some of these spiritual teachers who might be speaking about this very polarized, brothers or whatever, who are bashing other spiritual teachers. And I'm thinking, but what is the need to do this? Why do you need to do this? Focus on yourself and your own war. Why are you creating wars externally for yourself, and polarizing once again?
Yeah. And Erica, do you remember also when we first started, remember when you asked the first question? We didn't know we were going to receive this information. We went in to understand the reptilian beings. And then, we went into, like, usually they guide me where to go. And Erica asked, she's so good with her questions. She asked, how do we know we are speaking to someone who is actually giving us the correct information? Do you have the document in front of you? What was that, the exact words they actually said?
Oh, okay, let me just see.
I'll bring it up here. Like, here it is. He said we must trust our own inner guidance, that we are receiving the most accurate guidance. The inner guidance system is the most accurate in receiving information for the greater whole. Do we trust our guidance and seems to guide us where we need to go? And then they said the information is ready only when the student is ready to receive it. We are starting to receive info because we have done many non-polarized, I would say, communication and channeling, and asked the question to understand that both perspectives or experiences must be valid to a sense for it to be in existence, you know? So we just found that part to be really profound, how they put the question back to us, do you trust your inner guidance, you know? So they weren't like, yeah, no, this is the truth. They were like, you trust yourself, which I love.
Yeah, and there's also no
That's how we-
judgment. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm done, actually.
No, I just wanted to say that there's no judgment. You remember the other day we were doing another channeling and it got very dark very quickly, and I was saying that because we were getting blocked, information getting blocked for some reason. And I was saying there's no judgment. I have no judgment. I look at you with curiosity. I want to understand your perspective. I want to understand both sides of the story, not just one side of the story. Otherwise, we're rewriting the history books, you know, which were not accurate. So I just like to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that part was quite profound that came through in the session. And, you know, when that was communicated through as well, I felt very, very taken care of, to a sense that we were so taken care of, and just wanting to learn and understand what everything is about. We just wanna know. It's interesting, and at the same time we get to know ourselves when we do this, because I think this was the first life that we found that I actually had. Because most of my experiences have been walk-ins. My first experience on Earth was part of that Lemurian and original race experience. So it was quite interesting, you know, because it was the first experience that we found that actually, where I had an actual experience and not just the walk-in experience. Yeah. Your mic is off. Your mic is off.
Sorry, I had to move because I had to plug in. I think again is that kind of purity, and why a lot of the information is coming through you guys, because you have that purity or that neutrality of just a child discovering information for the first time, not having a opinion about it, a preconceived idea or a judgment about it. It's just taking the information in and communicating it to the world. Because once you have that layered, that filter, that judgment, the information is no longer pure. Then it's just influenced by your own filters, your own judgment.
It becomes another story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to talk about. I'm going to quickly put the light on because the light is falling quite quickly now. But please, Erica, maybe if you want to, is there anything else you guys want to touch on? I'll be right back.
No, I think that's our story. You know, to get contact me at QHHT sessions in Cape Town, people that can come and see me in Cape Town. I also do the night surrogate sessions for people all over the world as well, kind of channeled surrogates where they're incredible information out of this world, literally out of this world information. So yeah, check out my website, my YouTube channel, QHHT Cape Town. So I think that's all from my side today, and thank you so much, Anina. Very, very thankful to see you again, meet you again, and yeah, we should definitely do this again in the future. Maybe next time we can turn the tables and we can ask you a couple of questions, right? That would be interesting, because I'm usually the one asking the questions, not answering the questions. So maybe we can turn the tables a bit.
Your mic is off again. Your mic.
Sorry about that. I so enjoyed all your sessions. At some point I was like binge watching a lot of these sessions with information I just found amazing. So I really wanted to bring that to more people. So I'll definitely put links in the description of your guys' channels as well. I think we need to get the word out and get more people on board and wake more people up so we can create that sort of tipping point, not only here, but globally. And I've always wondered why I'm in Cape Town. Why am I here? I don't know about you guys, but it's very encouraging to know that Cape Town, Lions Head, Cape Point, Agulhas has such an important role to play in the global awakening. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Devil's Peak, I don't know if you know about this, but the portals are literally, so I can look by a window and I can see Devil's Peak, and there's stargates and super gates, all kinds of things there, which is why I've always been very attracted to it. Yeah,
Oh, really?
go to there and open those portals.
So Devil's Peak is also a portal.
It's a hot spot, yeah, for activity. Yeah.
And in the center of Cape Town, Table Mountain as well.
And there's also a mothership.
Yes, a
surrounding the
Pleiadian. Yeah.
Where
Pleiadian mother. Above the mountain, there's a Pleiadian mothership as well.
is that? When it's always
And then-
cloudy, like a cloudy blanket hanging over the mountain?
Yeah. Yes, we've been up to the ship before in one of the sessions, surrogacy sessions.
Really? Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. The surrogacy sessions are absolutely incredible. We discover so much through these sessions. It was one of the surrogacy sessions we did that actually helped me step into the audible telepathy, or what we call light language. And this is when I started doing,
I listened to
came
that.
through
It was amazing.
That was
Yeah,
the first time you received it, that light language.
that was the first time, yeah.
Oh, no, that was really amazing, because I just heard another one the other day and it was quite similar. I was like, how do they do this? I mean, it's incredible, the information that
I do light language sessions to help people remember, because everyone can speak light language. It's part of our expanded communication. First, we go into audible telepathy, which is frequency communication, and then we go into what we know as telepathy, which is kind of like a frequency silent communication, like we receive in the sessions. Like I usually relay to Erica, they say, or they said this, or that happened there, they said that. Yeah. So the light language is just the first step into it. Yeah.
I think we'll have to have another session. And would you ever do like a light language session in one of these sessions, or is it always just channeled? Or
so I do light language all day, every day. I speak Lyren light language to my cats. They don't understand me when I speak Afrikaans or English to them, because they're both Lyren beings as well. And I have my main platform is on TikTok, so I post almost every day some sort of light language transmission to help with something specific, and then I do lives as well, and then I post everything over to my YouTube channel, and then I do QHHT and the surrogates. So I also see QHHT clients. But my main focus is the surrogates and the light language.
Amazing. I'll definitely put links in the description so you can go and check it out. Can you guys hear me?
Fabulous. Yes.
Sorry. I think my Wi-Fi is getting a bit spotty. That was amazing, guys. I think we'll have to have another session if you don't mind, so we can dive into a few more subjects. I think this information is super important for the world at large to know. So hopefully we can spread it far and wide. And yeah, exciting times that we are in, that we chose to be in at this stage on Earth. We all chose to be here, and we all signed up for this mission. So that's super exciting.
And congratulations, Anina, with your fabulous YouTube channel and your upcoming sites. Yeah, and you're doing so well. Such a fabulous service to humanity. So you can pat yourself on the back.
Thank you. I mean, you had also a role in that. I mean, I think you were like, why don't you start a YouTube channel? I was like, what? No way. It's like, I don't want to put myself out there. I always like to hide behind other stuff. I create these brands and then kind of hide behind them. And it's like, hold on, gotta get out there now, because it's now or never. You know, we gotta get this planet to start moving into the next phase as quickly as we can. So finally.
Yeah. No, when I saw you, I thought this kid needs to be on screen. Like, people need to see her, and people need to hear her truth. I mean, because you had such like infinite intelligence. So yeah,
you've got a beautiful voice. You've got a beautiful voice.
Thank you. I'm learning every day to start using it a little bit more, finding my voice, so to speak.
Yay!
Love it.
Thank you so much, guys. Exciting
Thank
times.
you.
Look forward to the next session. And yeah, just congratulations with the amazing work that you do, and keep it up.
Yes, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll chat soon.